Okay, who is feeling bold, brave, and brilliant wants to jump in first? Everybody's going to get 5 minutes, and then that'll give time in between, about a minute in between for any feedback people have. All right, Aretha, are you going to focus on, for this one, your music career or on your teaching?
I'm going to fully commit to music.
Okay, that's what I thought. So music. What within music are you seriously committed to doing this year?
So seriously committing to doing this year, I'm committed to seek out performance opportunities internationally.
Okay,
Like,
like the one in France.
yes,
Okay.
I'm going.
Oh, you're going to France. Hey. Okay.
It worked
So
out.
so what are your thoughts on where I was suggesting that you reach out on Instagram to artists within France or where you want to go and start doing collaborations like that? What are your thoughts on that?
That is probably what I should do. I did, though. I reached out to one of my friends who is a he's a marketing. What does he actually do? He's in marketing and advertisement internationally already. And I told him that I was coming to France and he's going to meet me there. So he already has some connections there in the pop world. And so I asked him, I took a bold move and I asked him, does he have any people he can introduce me to?
Okay, when you get there, you want to meet some people in person.
Yes. But
Okay.
I do like the idea of reaching out. Interesting. Reaching out. Is this like just cold calling people or just randomly? Hello, random person. I'm
Yes.
coming to Paris. Can I meet you?
So this is how I would do it. And this is I'm going to give this advice to a lot of people. Is
Okay,
you go on Instagram.
go on Instagram.
Yep. And there's two ways. If you're posting regularly, like what I do in the morning is I post at least once a day, and one of those is always before I go to bed. So when I wake up in the morning, I look at all the people who liked my post for that day because they're liking hashtags that are relevant to the work I do. And I look at who liked it and I click on their profiles. And when I find somebody who has about like 1,500 or more followers and is doing something that's relevant to me and my audience, I then follow them and hit the message button. And I message them and say, hey, insert blank. And I say something relevant so they actually know I looked at their page, like, hey, I looked at your blog post, insert blog post name, and I thought it was dope. And then everything else I say after that is basically a copy and paste. It says, I'm reaching out because I'd love to collaborate with you by you being a guest on my podcast. So yours would be, hey, I'm reaching out because I love the way you create music or the way you play guitar. And I really feel that your guitar would be perfect behind my voice. I'm reaching out to see if you'd be interested in recording some sort of guitar lick that I can then sing over. The song can be anywhere between 1 to 3 minutes long. Are you interested? Send. And you'd be doing that on Instagram. And for the most part, you'll get out of every 10 to 15 of these you send, you'll get one person who says yes.
Okay.
And you should figure out exactly what you want. Do you want them to have the song already written and you sing to it? Or do you want to have a melody that you sing and they write the music around?
Okay.
Which of those are you most interested in?
I like the idea of them giving a melody.
Okay. So I would be super clear. I'm interested in you writing an instrumental I can sing over. Can it have one verse and one chorus?
Okay.
What's your level of commitment on that? Are you in the area of like, it's something I want to play with, or I'm really committed to doing that?
I'm committed to at least trying once.
Once? What do you mean by once?
Well,
Like getting one person to say yes?
Yeah, I'm a person who likes to say I'm going to try it once and see how it goes.
Okay.
And if I'll keep going. But you said I need 1 out of 10.
Well, it usually takes a couple people to you to message before you get a yes. And
I get it. Okay, I can try this though. I like this idea.
So I would, if I was you, search the hashtag like producer or music maker, somebody who creates instrumentals. And I would message like a producer or somebody who's making beats and say exactly what I just said. And probably if you message 10 people, one will say yes.
Okay. Okay, I like that.
Anybody have any feedback for Aretha? Any ideas? Anybody out there? No pressure on it. Just so I'm going to give it like 30 seconds in between each person.
I would just say, if you're reaching out to people that, in the music industry, that, you try to have something a little more, along the same lines, but maybe just a little more detail about, that one song, it really got to me, blah, blah, blah. But at a little bit, something genuine, that it's like, okay, it's not a cut, you can say have the recipe cut and paste, but
right.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
That it's like, oh, okay. Oh, they've actually listened to my music. Oh, then, that was one of my favorite songs too, whatever. I'm really proud of that or whatever, and do a little research.
Perfect. Yeah. Give them an example of what you want it to sound like.
Okay.
Great. Can we show Aretha some love? Spirit hands. Yes. We're switching it up. We're going to go with Grant next. Grant, you're in the hot seat.
The thing that I'm really interested, I feel like there's a few, let's just call it the 5 or something like that. Basic, I know I need to update a website and create a newsletter I'd like to get out. But that kind of like definitely happening, but a little bit more interesting. I've really enjoyed, listening to our podcasts, some of yours with interviews with people. And I'd really like to try my hand at that of interviewing people, but specifically about money conversations. Actually, kind of a little bit more niche is like people who are like towards the end of their life and are looking at like, legacy conversation and kind of coming up with like a way to interview people about what would they want their kids or grandkids to know, about how they got, to where they're at today and like, messages for the next generation kind of thing.
I love that.
That's like kind of what I'd say I'd really like to get done this year is figure out a format for that and like make that happen.
That's dope. I love it, Grant. A couple things on this. This is for everybody. Websites, in my opinion, are more or less modern day phone books. So spend more of your time on creating content than on perfecting your website. So if you find at any point that you're holding back because you're working on your website, you're doing too much on your website. Like a nice about me page, a nice home page that just has like even you like smiling, with your social media links, a contact me page, and your services. If you're using something like Squarespace, it shouldn't take you much longer than like 6 hours. So don't get obsessed with it looking perfect. People are going to interact with you on a daily basis based upon the content that you're posting. And then when they need something specific, they'll go to your website. But most people aren't like, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to like Serena Williams' website and just hang out there all day. Like we go to her Snapchat and her Instagram and, so for all of us, don't let building your website hold you back from executing. With the newsletter, the podcast is a 2-for-1 because your newsletter gets to become your podcast episode. And also your podcast becomes your call to action that builds your newsletter as well, like your audience for your newsletter. So then you don't have to think about every week, well, what am I going to write in this newsletter? It just automatically becomes this week's episode. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
I love the idea of interviewing people who are at the end of their life. I would figure out how you're going to phrase that. So that you can interview them, so they're like, I still gotta go, kid. I thought you were going to say a podcast, and even if you weren't, I was going to suggest a podcast. So what I want you to think of is you also have really fun and unique interests and ways at looking of the world. And so thinking of maybe if you do every 6th episode is a solo episode of you giving advice, or maybe these are just 3-minute videos, but I want you to, like all good teachers, teach through the bridge of something somebody already knows. And the way we do that is through like analogies. So, I don't know anything about a car. So my dad always explains cars to me by explaining how they relate to the guitar. So I want you to think of ways you can teach finance by relating it to, like, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, like things you've learned in Copa Era, or things you've learned, like relating a financial concept to a new song from one of your favorite bands. Or you were taking really good pictures of cooking. So maybe like relating like a good recipe, like while you're cooking, to like think of fun things like that.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of financial things out there, and already it's going to be different that you're interviewing like an older demographic. But it'll be good to hear from you and get your personality.
Yeah.
And link it to other things you like, so it's like fun and unique. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And thanks for the compliment.
So that'd be something where I would put in your, like, what's something you want to play with? I think that's number 4, is how can I relate financial concepts to things like Copa Era, or like the music you listen to, or, think of like something like that, even if it takes you like 2 months to think of an episode that's like that.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Anybody have any feedback that they want to provide Grant?
I would just say, I mean, I think it's a great idea. The whole thing of looking back, what do you wish you're talking to the 20-year-old you, what would you have done, differently? And I think it's great. Although I think you're going to get some repetition for sure. So I would probably have another card to play as well. Have those kind of interviews and have something else too, just so you don't just get, okay, so it's another old guy saying you should have started a savings account or whatever, But that's the only thought. But I think it's a great idea.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, good advice. And you could, like, I always think, like, if I could give my like 12-year-old self advice. So I don't think it has to be old, but if you're always like, what would you tell a letter to your younger self? You could interview different age demographics to switch it up a little.
All right.
Dope. Grant, if you haven't already, I suggest listening to the Power of Audio replay, because we go into depth on how to start a podcast on there. So if you haven't listened to that episode. Okay.
Right.
Awesome. Let's show Aretha and Grant some spirit hands for jumping in first. We're going to Raisa next. Raisa, you are in the hot seat.
All right. Okay. Seriously committing to this year. There's a couple of different areas of my life, but I'm going to focus on the business.
Okay.
And I really want to refine my signature program, and then eventually kind of work it into a digital product. So what I mean by that is run multiple groups on that. And in order to do that, I feel like the space that I'm in right now, working with Muslim women, divorced Muslim women, just really I'm trying to get into understanding them and understanding that there are all different levels, from the time they make the decision to get divorced, through the whole process, through closure, and then next steps into their life. So when I started getting into this, there was, I didn't really understand the different levels, or, I went through it myself, but it's different when you're trying to support other people through it, is trying to, meeting them where they're at and help and understanding what are their needs with what stage they're at right now. So one of my words for this year has been focused discipline. So I'm going to be applying that to understanding my audience and my person, in terms of what are their needs at different parts of their journey, and then tailor my program, which is going to get split into different parts, if you will. And that is what I'm trying to perfect. I was thinking about this as I went into it as a general, just in general terms. But as I get to know my people and understand what it is they need, I realize that depending on where you're at in this process, you have very different needs. So that's what I'm trying to kind of honed down, and I'm doing a lot of research, target market research, and I am just running the program. So talking to a lot of people, doing a lot of calls. And I think that one of my other words has just been consistency, focus, discipline, and consistency.
That's awesome. I love how much the focus you have. My thing this year is discipline equals freedom. It's one of the books by Jocko Willink. Great book,
Yes.
great podcast. So I was mostly hearing you talk about curriculum, and then a little bit at the end you were talking about like marketing and sales. So just to clarify, am I hearing you say that like in terms of curriculum, how do you write curriculum that like they call scaffolding, like meets the person exactly where they're at, where you might have people who are like barely doing any personal development or like, oh my God, I'm screwed, to like the person that's like, no, I'm doing great, I want to take it to the next level. How do you work with them in a group at the same time? Is that what kind of the question is? What you're exploring?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the things that I'm exploring. And people are always going to be at different levels. I recognize that, and it's just their journey. It's not like I need them to be where I think they should be or be where everyone else is. I think it's just, besides that, depending on the phase of that journey of divorce and then starting, your new life, there's different things that are going on. And so you're thinking, your priorities and the way you're thinking is very different from, making decisions, splitting assets and, splitting dynamics, shifting and transitioning dynamics is very different than, okay, well, what are my next steps for myself? I'm reinventing and rebuilding a new life for myself. There's very different headspace. So even the level, the type of support is going to be different. So the way I was envisioning this would be like, kind of piecemeal, but then putting it all together from start to finish. And different people are going to be interested in different parts of it depending on where they're at. Does that make it more clear?
Are you looking to do a pre-recorded course or a live group coaching?
I was planning on doing a live group coaching, but as I've been going through this, it's been such a work in progress, because I feel like the area that I am in is kind of uncharted in terms of our community and the Muslim community, really, in terms of divorce and how to move forward from that. Is that I was looking to do it as a group coaching program, but I'm thinking parts of it can be pre-recorded. So I don't have a definitive answer yet for that.
Okay. So my advice is to start with group coaching, because it's a good way to figure out what your future course will be and to really get that experience of knowing where your people are at, and also getting clarity on the feedback that you get for people that felt that for some reason or another, even if you're like, oh, if you would have stuck with it, you could have figured it out. For some reason or another, the people who show up to one or two and are like, this isn't for me. And you start to figure out what is that thing, if you follow up and call them, that they say is why they're saying this isn't for me. And this is for anybody like Grant. You'll eventually probably create a group coaching finance one, or Aretha, your group coaching for singing. And what I would do is do two things: either do a pay what you can group coaching, or have the price to entry low, like $50 to $100. And the reason I would suggest that is because you're learning as you go too, and you'll get more numbers of people that you can experiment with, and you get to basically kind of get paid to become good and get paid to learn, while building a base of people who are going to become your big advocates and say you're the best. So it can kind of suck because it's the opposite of people saying sell that stuff for $1,000 or $2,000. But I think, especially in the age where we have so much choice, that if you want to play that long game, it's better to get really good, to build that core audience of people that love you, because at a time in their lives where they didn't have any money, they could have access to you, that I suggest doing it at a low entry. And what you would do is like what I have is the recording becomes the pre-recorded stuff becomes the recordings. And after doing that, if you're doing two a month, like I've been doing, like after about 7 months, I could just take all the episodes out and turn those into courses. Or I know what would be a scaled where people who are at like just getting divorced versus this, you're going to start to have that content after you do it for about 6 months, and you'll have way more clarity on it. So that would be my suggestion on that. Sound good?
Thank you. That was really helpful. Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Definitely. So we're going to like wave, as in we're waving to the coolest person ever. Because good job, Raisa. Where's the wave? Nobody else but me and Dale. There we go. There we go. On that note, we're jumping over to you, Sadia. Sadia, from the conversations we've had, is you're really focused on your professional career, the one where you're working with granting asylum. So that's kind of what I had went into us that we are going to talk about. Is that true?
That's not what I wrote.
Okay, go with what you have then.
But okay, I'm sure those things will coincide. Yeah. So I'm thinking right now and this year, for whatever reason, I'm very interested in like adulting and making decisions about my money and about my career that is more quote unquote stable. So what I wrote for the first one, what are you seriously committed to executing during this year, was reducing my debt to $5,000. So currently I have student loans that are like, why now? Because I'm ready to be an adult and build wealth and have security and freedom. What do I need? Discipline and intentionality. So I like that you mentioned The Discipline Equals Freedom, and that's a book that I could possibly check out, because I feel like me and discipline are not friends. And then in part C, what do you want yourself to remember 6 months from now? And my answer is the feeling of motivation that I have right now.
I love that. I love that. We've already talked about, and Grant's probably more of an expert in this, but to me, with when it comes to debt relief and all those kind of things, I highly recommend the book, The Automatic Millionaire. I think the discipline is doing everything automatic, where the money automatically comes out of your paycheck and goes into your savings. It automatically is paying your credit card, because when you have to manually go and do it, we skip a month and we're like, maybe I can save. But you just mentally automatically build it in that, that $250 that goes out of my paycheck into my, planned savings or my wealth account or my debt relief account. When it does it automatically, it takes the element of our, sometimes not having discipline out of the equation. One thing I wanted to, from the conversations we've had, is you said you're going to kind of put the music career focus on hold for a minute and really focus on advancing your professional career.
Right.
So one thing I want to suggest to you is to really start exploring and practicing what it means to be a manager, and both a manager and a leader. Because I've had people who are excellent leaders and can run companies as the face of the company, but they have to hire people to manage it for them, because some people are wonderful leaders, but terrible managers. And so for yourself would start exploring, because that's going to be the next step, is you're going to go from being managed to being a manager. And so I would start intellectually trying to understand for you, what are the qualities of a good manager and leader, which you already researched lots of things on YouTube. And so the way I would suggest you execute that is either by writing or by explaining in your own words concepts of being a manager or a leader that you resonate with. And you're really good at video, and I know it's out of your comfort zone, but I would love to see you, whenever you watch something on YouTube, or like if you're listening to my podcast or somebody's podcast and something resonates with you, what I want to invite you to do is once a week to either explain in your own words that concept by typing it as a long form Facebook post or as a 1 or to 3 minute video where you explain that concept in your own words. And that'll then give you the chance to practice that managerial skill before your manager, because you're explaining it what it's like in your own words. And then people will ask you questions and you can interact with their questions and you start to get to practice that manager leadership skill ahead of time. And you never know who's watching that says, you know what, Sadia's really good at this. I want to give her a chance. What are your thoughts on that?
I wrote all of that down, and that sounds like definitely it sounds like a good idea. And part of it I do in some form. Sometimes I'm not very consistent, but keeping notes of things that resonate with me. So that definitely, it sounds like a really good idea. And then the other part of that you said was to either write about it or make a video about it and to share it with others.
Yes. So to go from remember you said you liked in my podcast where I talked about if leadership is a bridge of two extremes. So if you have on one end reflection, so you're writing down and reflecting upon a good idea, and then one is decision, where you take that reflection and actually do something with it. So what you would be doing with it is going from reflecting upon it to teaching it to somebody. And so you can teach it to somebody, or you can try to explain your understanding of it by either writing it out as a blog post or by recording yourself doing it as a video. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yes. Thank you.
And I recommend that for anybody doing any sort of education. Grant, Raisa, Aretha, where if you come across a good concept, just saying, oh, I came across this, and then explaining it in your own words. Last thing, Sadia, you are amazing at asking questions. And so I want you to steal what I do and start posting questions on your social media, because the best managers are the ones who ask the best questions. So I ask a question every morning. I want to suggest that at least twice a week, you start asking an open-ended question that people can't answer by saying yes or no. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yes, I'm writing that all down. Thank you.
Okay, Dale, you too. I think that would be awesome. Raisa, that would be a good way for you to learn where like Muslim divorced women are at. Start asking open-ended, very simple questions. Cool. I think you're already doing that. I think I already see you doing that. Okay. Ashley with 2 E's, you're taking us home. Look at this. We are on time. I am so loving this stopwatch.
Hi. Okay. So I guess what I want to be committed to this year is like strategies to grow my business and consistency and tracking my numbers too.
Okay. Are you talking about the hair business or real estate?
The hair business.
Okay. So what do you mean by consistency? What do you mean by tracking your numbers?
Consistency with my social media. I'm not a big social media person, but I realize that I need to be more so than I am now. So being consistent with that and my marketing. And when I say tracking my numbers, like tracking to see what marketing is working, what's not working, and kind of go from there. Because sometimes I just kind of throw things out there and see what sticks, but I don't really have a system to track it.
Okay, I'm with you. I didn't know if you meant like the numbers you like the profit and loss numbers. So you mean more like what's working that I'm doing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So a couple things on that is, for me, we have the like building your organic base, and that is going to like more of an intuition thing that you track. So something like a podcast, I put on my podcast and I don't really know who's listening. And then and this is the same thing with my Facebook posts. And then I'll run into somebody who's never liked a single post of mine in their entire life. And they will tell me that they listen to my podcast every week without fail. They don't answer my question of the day, but they answer it and they talk to all their friends. And so there's like an immeasurable part of building the brand that we can't necessarily track. It's more like you just kind of feel how it feels when you express yourself and the limited interaction we do have. But it can become so hard to like really figure out the variables. Like, was it the time of day? Was it that I didn't use a picture? And so those kind of things, you're just going to kind of intuitively figure out by experimenting. But when you start to talk about marketing as in running Facebook ads or running YouTube ads, that's when we can get really technical on the numbers. So which one are you talking about? Like starting to post every single day and build that organic base, or are you starting to want to run Facebook ads?
Well, I mean, as far as tracking the numbers, I think you're right. Like that is more like when it comes to the ad part of marketing. But I feel like in order for that to work, like I do have to be consistent in posting regularly too.
This is what I would commit to at least for the next 6 months. And this is for all of us. I would track your own numbers, the things you can control. So I would say I'm committed to, first of all, posting once a day, no matter what. And if I miss once a day, I'm posting 2 times the next day. So that's a number that we can control that won't drive us crazy because like you can actually do that. Once you start posting once a day, I would start experimenting with, I'm going to twice a week do a video, once a week do a long form post. Like I would start experimenting with what the posts are. And after about 6 months of doing that, then you can get a little more technical. Say, I'm going to experiment with what time of day it is. Like I would first start by tracking your own numbers, because if you start tracking the likes and the follows and the shares, it can really start to eat at your morale. And what can start to happen is you start kind of like posting for the lowest common denominator. Like I know for me, if I post a picture with Adora and I, like it'll get a ton of likes. Like people want to see Adora, not me. So when I do that, I would probably have 1 million followers if I just posted pictures of Adora and I. But I have way more that I want to share than just my personal relationship. And so there's got to be like a bigger mission than just the likes. So that would be my suggestion for tracking numbers, is tracking.
Right. I feel like more so like when it comes to like marketing and I'm running ads, like I need to be more consistent on like, you know, seeing what's really working. You're right. Like I'm not talking about like just posting pictures of myself or different content like that. I just feel like once they see the ad, they need something to click back to. That's really the only reason why I need to be more consistent with posting in my mind. I don't know. You can tell me if that's not right.
No, I can answer that. I'm just going to say peace, Aretha. We know you have to jump off. Thanks for joining us. You know, the thing about ads, and we'll cover ads in one of our future sessions, is it'll track it for you. All those numbers are tracked for you because Facebook just does it for you. So you don't have to worry about tracking that yourself. But I would decide if you're talking about, I want to start running ads, how much money you're going to spend a day going from that point. So if you're talking about, yes, running ads, but I would guess from the conversations that we had that your starting place would be starting to post just by yourself organically at least once a day. Does that make sense? For all of us, let's just do, and then we'll close out. Let's just do a quick Facebook ads overview for anybody who's starting to think of Facebook ads. There's 3 phases to a Facebook ad. The first one is connect. The second one is commit. And the third one is close. And so basically what that means is you want to begin with the end in mind, right? 7 habits of highly effective people. And so you want to think, what is going to be the product or the service that you're delivering, whether it's a free a song download or subscribe to whatever it is, or you're selling a course or you're selling a book. Think about what is the product that you're selling. And your close is, what are the objectives that people have for why they tell you they're not going to purchase that product. Your close phase is all about putting out ads and the close phase of your email sequence, speaking to people's objections. Oh, people say it's too expensive. I'm going to run a Facebook ad that says, do you feel like this is too expensive? I don't have the time. Do you feel like you don't have the time? Okay, that's the close. Now, the commit is where people actually opt into your mailing list. Okay, some people call it like they call it the opt-in. So basically you say, here's this free thing, take my free thing, and now you're in my email sequence. That's in the commit phase. The first phase is where people spend the most amount of their time is on the connect. So it's where you're connecting with cold traffic, people have never seen you before, where you run some sort of ad at a cold audience where you don't ask for a single thing. You are just establishing authority. You're warming them up. You're not asking them to go home with you after meeting them for the first time at the bar. You're just saying, hey, I'm Tom and I laugh a lot. And, you know, like I'm an activist. So if you don't like any of those things, you probably shouldn't waste either of our money. Nobody sees your ads after if they see you in the cold traffic. Only the people who watch like 50% or more of your video then see the ads that say commit by signing up for my free opt-in. Only the people in the close section see those ads if they've gone through the warm-up and they've committed and then they're in the close. So they all interact with each other. That's the overview. Obviously, there's more to it. There's just 2 minutes. But if you're starting to think about running Facebook ads, start to think about what are going to be your objections, speaking to their objections. Start there. What's going to be the free opt-in, and then what'll be some of your things to warm up traffic. But you want to split them into those 3 sections rather than doing it all at one time.
Right. Okay. And then like how often should you run an ad? Like, is it a daily thing, or I guess it just depends on my budget?
It does depend on your budget. That we'll kind of do a training, an Inner Power training, just on Facebook ads. But if we want to get more into the nitty gritty, we can definitely connect on that. But I would say the take for yourself and for everybody is, if you're not already posting once a day, please, please, please start posting once a day. The 8 C's of content, it's one of the past episodes. I highly recommend you check that one out. Collaborating, capturing, all those things. Check out the 8 C's of podcast replay. That'll give you a really great place to start. We did it. We got through everybody in an hour. Yes. Can you snap it up for your beautiful selves?
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for stopping by this week and listening to this replay, this live Q&A that was recorded. If you want to join us for one of our Inner Power group coaching sessions and be a part of this awesome group, we'd love to have you join us. And I want to let you know that for anybody who's been wanting to join, but price has been a barrier, that for this month, we're offering scholarships to anybody who's been wanting to join, but finance has been a barrier for you. So if you're interested in joining Inner Power group coaching and would like a scholarship to be a part of our group, first and foremost, it's important that what you're doing is striving to make the world a better place. And as a group, we're not just building our businesses, we're not just building our own leadership, but we're here to support and build each other up as well. So if that resonates with you, if you'd like to be a part of us and apply for a scholarship, shoot me an email, tom@tomearl.com, or you can find me, direct message me on Instagram @TomEarlArtist. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to spending time with you again next week. As always, I'm wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.